His voice came through my phone speaker, warm and low, the way it used to sound on our first dates. "Baby, I miss you so much. I can't stop thinking about you. Come home soon." I stood in our own hallway, still wearing my coat, my car keys in my hand, listening to my husband tell me he missed me. He was 12 feet away. I could hear him breathing. I had left work early that Tuesday. My migraine had turned vicious around 2 in the afternoon, the kind that presses behind your left eye like a screw being slowly tightened. My colleague Dana had covered my last meeting. I hadn't texted Marcus to say I was coming home early. I never thought I needed to. After 11 years of marriage, you stop announcing yourself. You just come home. The audio message had arrived while I was still in the car. I saw the notification, but I was driving, so I waited until I pulled into the garage. I sat there for a second with the engine off, already smiling before I even pressed play, because that was the thing about Marcus. Even after everything, even after the years of ordinary Tuesday exhaustion and the arguments about money and the slow drift that happens to every long marriage, he still did things like that. Little voice messages, random thinking of you texts. He had always been romantic in those small, effortless ways, and I had always loved him for it. I pressed play. "Baby, I miss you so much. I can't stop thinking about you. Come home soon." I walked through the door from the garage into the kitchen, still holding the phone, still listening, the audio on repeat because I wanted to hear it again. The house felt quiet in that particular late afternoon way. The light was gold through the kitchen windows. I remember thinking, we're going to be fine. After the rough patch we'd been through, after 6 months of him working late and coming home distracted and barely present at dinner, I remember standing in my own kitchen thinking, he still loves me. He sent me that message, and it meant he still loved me. I walked down the hallway toward the living room, and that's when I heard it. His voice, live, not from my phone, from behind the partly closed door of his home office. Same tone, same warmth, the exact same words almost. I know, I miss you too. She's not home for another 2 hours." I stopped walking. My hand went cold around my phone. The audio was still playing in my palm. "Come home soon." And behind that door, my husband was on another call, telling someone that I wasn't home for another 2 hours. I stood there for what felt like a very long time. I don't think it was more than 30 seconds. I stood in my own hallway, in my coat, with my car keys still in my hand, listening to my husband have 2 conversations at the same time. One with me, one with her. And I made a decision, right there between one breath and the next. I didn't open that door. I didn't say a word. I turned around, walked back through the kitchen, got in my car, and drove to the end of our street. And I sat there and I cried until I couldn't see the road. His name was Marcus Hale. Mine is Celeste. We met when I was 26 at a conference in Atlanta where we had both been presenting. He for his financial consulting firm, me for the marketing agency where I was, at the time, a junior account manager working twice as hard as anyone else in the room. He was funny and confident, and he bought me a terrible glass of red wine at the hotel bar, and we talked until 1 in the morning. I flew home thinking about him. He called 2 days later. By the time I was 28, we were engaged. We had a good life. I want to be honest about that because I think it matters. I want you to understand that this wasn't a marriage that had been dead for years. We had a son, Eli, who was 9 at the time all of this happened. We had a house in a suburb of Charlotte that we had renovated together, room by room, over 5 years. We had friends we liked and dinners we enjoyed, and a running joke about the terrible vacation we'd taken to Savannah the year Eli was born, where everything that could go wrong did go wrong, and we still laughed about it at dinner parties. I had supported Marcus through building his firm from 3 clients to 47. I had done my own career in the margins of his ambition, rearranging my schedule when his travel required it, taking Eli to every school drop-off and pickup because Marcus was always in a meeting, always on a flight, always building something. I had been proud of him. I had told people with genuine feeling that I was proud of him. And he had been sending her voice messages, while sending me voice messages, from the same room. I drove around for an hour that evening. I went to a Target I never normally went to and walked the aisles for 40 minutes buying nothing, just needing to be somewhere anonymous and brightly lit where I didn't have to be Celeste Hale with the renovated house and the 9-year-old and the successful husband. I bought a bottle of sparkling water and a pack of pens I didn't need. I sat in the parking lot for another 10 minutes after that, just breathing, watching a woman load groceries with 2 small kids helping her, everything looking completely ordinary from the outside. How many women are in parking lots right now, having just heard something that took the floor out from under their entire lives, and nobody walking past can see it at all? I drove home. I made dinner. I asked Marcus how his day was. He said, good, busy, the usual. He ate my pasta and complimented it and helped Eli with his homework, and later that night kissed me on the cheek before he fell asleep. I lay next to him in the dark for 3 hours with my eyes open. I thought about every Thursday for the past year when he came home late. The weekend in September when he said there was a client emergency in Nashville, and I had stayed home alone with Eli and ordered pizza and not once questioned it. The Christmas before last, when he had been distracted and short-tempered all through dinner, and I had assumed it was work stress, and I had been understanding and patient, the way you are when you love someone, and you believe in the fundamental decency of who they are. I thought about all the patience I had spent on a lie. I did not confront him that night, or the next day, or the week after. Because somewhere in that Target, walking past the scented candles, I had made a second decision. I was going to find out everything before I said a single word. I had learned enough, just from that hallway moment, to know that I was dealing with someone who was very, very good at lying. The voice message he'd sent me, the warm, "I miss you so much," that was not an accident. That was not a man who had forgotten his wife existed. That was a man who was managing 2 realities simultaneously and doing it with care. And if I walked in there half-informed, with nothing but my pain and 30 seconds of overheard conversation, he would talk me in circles. He was a consultant, organizing complicated information into convincing narratives was literally what he did for money. So I waited, and I watched. His phone habits were the first thing I noticed once I started paying attention. He charged it face down on his nightstand. He had a long passcode, not the 4-digit one I'd seen him use for years. He angled screens away from me in a way that seemed casual, but was not. He had started, sometime in the past several months, taking his phone into the bathroom every single time. I had registered these things vaguely before. The subconscious noticing things the conscious mind isn't ready to accept. But now I cataloged them. I also started paying attention to money. Marcus handled our finances. He always had, because he was the financial consultant. Because it made sense, because early in our marriage I had been more than happy to hand that off to someone who actually understood investment accounts and tax strategies. But now I sat down one Sunday while he took Eli to a soccer game, and I went through everything I could access. Our joint checking account, the savings account I knew about, the mortgage statements, and I found the withdrawals. Not dramatic, all-at-once withdrawals. Careful ones. Consistent ones. Every month for at least 2 years, between $1,800 and $2,400, moved from our joint savings into an account I didn't recognize. I had to request paper statements. He had switched everything to paperless, which I now understood. And when I saw the pattern laid out across 26 months, I felt something I can only describe as a cold, clarifying fury. Not the hot kind that makes you scream, the cold kind that makes you think. He had moved, conservatively, over $52,000. I hired a private investigator named Donna Reyes 2 weeks after that Sunday. She came recommended by a divorce attorney named Patricia Walsh, who I had visited under the guise of asking hypothetical questions about asset protection. I had dressed carefully for that appointment. I wore a blazer I usually saved for important work presentations. I sat across from Patricia's desk in her office on South Tryon Street, with my hands folded on my lap, and I gave her what I thought was a very composed summary of a hypothetical situation involving a spouse who may have been redirecting marital funds. Patricia Walsh had been doing divorce law for 22 years. She listened without interrupting, and when I finished, she looked at me for about 4 seconds and said, very quietly, "You don't have hypothetical questions, do you?" I started crying before I could answer. Not the quiet, controlled kind, the kind that surprises you, that comes from somewhere you didn't know was that full. She pushed a box of tissues across the desk without comment, without any of those hollow reassurances that would have required me to respond. She just waited. When I had composed myself enough to breathe normally, she said, "Tell me everything from the beginning." And I did. She gave me Donna's card at the end of that meeting and said 3 things I have never forgotten. Document everything, spend nothing unusual, and do not tell him you know. Then she said, "The woman who walks out of this in the strongest position is the woman who walks in fully prepared." I drove home calmer than I had been in 2 weeks. Donna was thorough. She was also very calm, which I appreciated, because I was not. Over the next 6 weeks, she documented Marcus and a woman named Sienna Farrow, 29 years old, worked in commercial real estate, lived in an apartment in South End that I later discovered was rented under Marcus's business account, in 17 separate encounters. Restaurants, a hotel in Ballantyne, her apartment, once at a resort in Asheville, over a weekend he told me was a client retreat. And you want to know what made my stomach drop the hardest? It wasn't any of that. It was the photo from the Asheville resort. He was smiling in a way I hadn't seen him smile in at least 3 years. Relaxed, open. The smile of a man who was completely comfortable and completely happy. The smile I thought he saved for me. I kept going to work. I kept making dinner. I kept kissing him goodnight. I passed Patricia Walsh my documents and let her build the case. The filing happened on a Thursday morning. Patricia timed it specifically. Marcus had a standing client presentation every Thursday at 11 at his office downtown. The process server arrived at 10:53. Patricia had a contact at the firm, not an insider, just someone who confirmed the meeting schedule was public and posted on the office calendar online. Professional information, nothing improper, just precise. I was sitting in Patricia's office when she got the confirmation text. "He's been served," she said. I exhaled for what felt like the first time in 2 months. He called me 45 seconds later. I let it go to voicemail. His message was short, and his voice had a shake in it I had genuinely never heard before. Celeste, call me back. We need to talk, please. I saved the message and texted Patricia a screenshot out of habit. She replied with a single thumbs up. He came home that night and I was sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of tea, and Eli was at my mother's. He stood in the doorway still in his work coat, and I could see the papers in his hand. He'd brought them home, crumpled slightly, like he'd folded and unfolded them several times during the day. His face was doing something I had never seen it do before. Not anger, not defensiveness. Something closer to disorientation, like a man who had walked into a room and found all the furniture rearranged and couldn't locate himself. You didn't say anything, he said. You've known and you didn't say anything. I know, I said. How long? Long enough. He stood there for another moment, and then, slowly, like a man who has run out of options he understands, he sat down across from me and put the papers on the table. I noticed his hands were shaking. I registered that information calmly. I had spent 8 weeks making peace with the facts, not with my fear of them. And I was on the other side of the fear now. There was nothing he could say that was going to shatter me in this kitchen tonight. That window had closed. Celeste, I can explain. I don't want you to, I said. And I meant it completely. His explanations were for him. I had stopped needing them around week 4. She didn't mean Marcus. I kept my voice level. I had practiced this moment, not the words so much as the steadiness. I had rehearsed staying calm the way you rehearse anything that matters. I have documentation of $52,400 moved from our joint savings over 26 months. I have a record of 17 confirmed encounters. I have a lease on her apartment paid through your business account, which Patricia tells me constitutes marital asset dissipation, which will be very central to the settlement. I paused. Let him absorb that. And I have the voice message you sent me the day I came home early. The one where you told me you missed me from your office, while you were telling her on the phone that I wasn't home for 2 more hours. I looked at him directly. I've listened to that message many times. I needed to remember exactly what it felt like to be standing in my own hallway, in my own coat, figuring out in real time what kind of man I had spent 11 years building a life with. He didn't speak for what felt like a full minute. The kitchen was very quiet. I could hear the refrigerator hum. You should stay somewhere else tonight, I said. I have a list of hotels. Patricia suggested I have it ready. He picked up the papers. He stood up. And he left without arguing, without one more appeal, without even asking to see Eli first, which told me, more than anything else he had said or not said that evening, exactly how wrong all of this had been for a very long time. The man who loved his son above everything would have asked to see his son. The man standing in my kitchen that night was thinking only about himself. The divorce took 8 months. It was not pleasant, and there were several moments, particularly one Tuesday in April when his attorney tried to reclassify the business account as entirely separate from marital assets, where I sat in Patricia's office fighting the urge to put my head on the table. But Patricia Walsh did not become the lawyer she was by letting opposing counsel rewrite facts. The settlement gave me the house, which we had renovated to a current value of $890,000 with significant equity. It gave me primary custody of Eli, with generous visitation for Marcus, because regardless of what Marcus had done to me, he was a present and caring father, and Eli needed his dad, and I knew that, and I honored it. It gave me $6,700 a month in spousal support for 4 years, a figure that reflected the documented dissipation of marital assets, and it required Marcus to fund the entirety of Eli's college education. I did not tell Sienna Farrow anything directly. I didn't need to. When Marcus's business associate found out about the apartment lease, these things have a way of surfacing in professional circles, the information moved on its own. I heard through a mutual contact that Marcus and Sienna had lasted approximately 5 months after the divorce was filed. I found it very difficult to feel surprised. Marcus called me 8 months after the divorce was finalized. I almost didn't answer. He said he was sorry. He said he had been in therapy, and he understood now how deeply he had fractured something that couldn't be repaired, and he was sorry. He sounded tired in a way he hadn't sounded before. A different kind of tired than the man who used to come home distracted from work. This was something older and heavier. I told him I appreciated the call. I told him that for Eli's sake, I hoped he continued the work he was doing on himself. And then I said, Marcus, I listened to that voice message every night for 2 weeks. The one you sent me when you were in your office with her. I don't think you understand what you asked me to carry. I paused. I don't need an apology. What I needed was a husband who was honest with me. I can't give you absolution for that. Only you can work through it. There was a long silence, and then he said, I know, and we hung up. That was 14 months ago. I am 41 years old. Eli is 11 and growing so fast I have to remind myself to stop and look at him before the moment passes. We have a routine I love: Saturday morning pancakes, Sunday evening walks, a standing Friday movie night where he picks the film, and I am not allowed to complain about animated sequels. My mother comes for dinner every other week. I have started running again. Early mornings before Eli wakes up. Just me and the neighborhood streets in the dark quiet before everything begins. My career, which I had kept in the margins of someone else's ambition for too long, is no longer in the margins. I took a director role at a firm I genuinely respect. I work hard and I am seen for it, and I come home to a house that is fully mine. And I sit at the kitchen table where I served Marcus his walking papers, and I drink my tea, and I feel something I had forgotten was a normal way to feel. I feel calm. I feel like myself. I think about that moment in the hallway sometimes. The voice message playing from my phone, his voice live behind the door, both versions of him operating at the same time in the same house. I think about what I chose to do in that moment, not to scream, not to break, but to think. To go back to my car and drive to the end of the street and cry until it was over, and then to get calm and get strategic and get everything I was owed. Because here's what I want you to understand. If you're standing in your own hallway right now, or sitting in your own car at the end of your own street, with your hands shaking on the wheel, the moment you find out is not the moment you act. The moment you find out is the moment you decide what kind of woman you are going to be for everything that comes after. I decided I was going to be the kind of woman who walks out of that marriage with her house, her son, her dignity, and her peace. I decided I was going to be the kind of woman who, when her ex-husband called to apologize a year later, could answer the phone without her voice shaking. The voice message is still on my phone. I haven't deleted it. Not because I'm holding on to pain. I'm not, I promise you that. But because every now and then, when I need to remember exactly how clear and steady and capable I am, I play it. And I remember standing in that hallway, and I remember choosing, very deliberately, to be the woman who won.